Shalom, Knesset member Rothman. Let me see you a bit. There we go.
Shalom uvracha.
You know, first of all, if we're talking about court, we're talking about justice. How do you see what's going on now in the International Court of Justice? We're under trial.
Yes, I think that there are two things that I think need to be said on this. So, of course, the technical details, of course, are important. We are not, for many years, there was a hanging and still is a threat over people in Israel and soldiers and commanders from what it's called the ICC, the International Criminal Court. That's not the case we're talking about now. Israel is not part of the ICC. This is the ICJ. The ICJ is the High Court for Justice, but international, and it is part of the part of the UN. And I think that it's very important to say that the ICJ is part of the UN and Israel is part of the UN, so it has some kind of I don't want to get into the legal debate if Israel should come, ignore it or not. Other countries ignored it in the past. I'm not getting into it. But I do think that it's very, very important to remember that the same UN charter, the same founding document that founds the United Nations and founds the ICJ, recognize the people of Israel right on the land of Israel. It's the same document.
Jewish homeland.
Yes, it's Article 80 of the UN Charter, the convention that founds the UN. And it recognized the rights that was based on the British mandate, basically saying, this is our land. So the ICJ, I don't want to mix international law and law in Israel, but at least the ICJ, I hope, will not ignore the fact that the founding document of the ICJ is the same founding document that says land of Israel belong to the people of Israel.
Okay, now let's delve into what's going on now, and mainly to the day after. How do you really see the day after? And of course, this is in wake of the pressures, and we saw Blinken was just here, to bring in the Palestinian Authority, but they're telling us it'll be a new and improved Palestinian Authority.
Sure.
Exactly.
Sure.
2.0.
2.0, yeah. So first, I think it's very clear. You know, there is sur mera ve'aseh tov. If we're talking in Western term, we would say first don't do no harm. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about the day after, it's very important to say what shouldn't be in the day after, and the Palestinian Authority shouldn't be a part of the day after. Full stop. And also, another organization that is relevant and shouldn't be a part of the day after is UNRWA. And so if we say there are three organizations that operate in the Palestinian arena currently, that they never should operate in the first place, but definitely not in the day after in Gaza. So those three organizations are, and the order really does not matter, Hamas, Palestinian Authority, and UNRWA. All those three shouldn't exist in Gaza the day after. But the problem, so this
then comes the challenge.
Then comes the challenge. Sur mera, we know. What is the aseh tov? What is do good on Gaza? And this issue complicates for two reasons. One, truth must be told. we didn't find yet a good enough solution, neither in Judea and Samaria, or even in smaller Israel. Meaning, you mentioned before, the organization that I founded called the Israeli Movement for Governability and Democracy. Governability in Hebrew is meshilut, governability, or governance. That depends on the translation. It's sad to admit, but you cannot get anywhere if you don't recognize the problem and you don't say the truth, that Israel had a problem with the governability, even in some parts of the Galilee and the Negev. Definitely in Judea and Samaria.
You're talking about the
Gaza.
challenge with Israeli Arabs.
The challenge with Israel governability. The fact that in some places the state of Israel does not exist. Theoretically it exists, but it does not exist. And we saw it before the October 7th. We saw it in cases of racketeering and illegal weapons. With the Bedouins in the south, with Arab communities, and the rising numbers of murders that we saw. So the governability in smaller Israel is a problem. Governability in Judea and Samaria is even bigger problem. Governability in Gaza is even bigger problem.
But maybe this is an opportunity. I mean, we didn't take over now Judea and Samaria, Lud or Akko, but there's a different situation now in Gaza.
So that's exactly the point. So Israel, after we said what's not Hamas, not PLO, not Palestinian Authority equals PLO, and not UNRWA, I think the state of Israel needs to have the denazification system for Gaza. I think the first thing should be demilitarization, to make sure that there is no weapon in Gaza that can shoot anything at our people, and to make sure that Hamas, and you don't need to wait for the day after for that. In order to get to do this day, you need to close the Philadelphia line, so weapons and terror activists will not come from Egypt. You need to make sure that there is a big enough gap today, even before taking over the entire Gaza Strip, big enough gap of the militarized zone with nothing in there.
Permanently?
From far away from the Jewish communities in the surrounding of Gaza. That's a first level. I'm not talking the day after. I'm talking the day before the day after. And you have to make sure that any humanitarian aid, and it doesn't matter if it comes from Israel or come from other places, any humanitarian aid should be given to the population directly by the IDF, no one else. You cannot have the Hamas using the humanitarian aid in order to get more. But you're not. But
it's interesting because you're not coming out against humanitarian aid.
I am saying there are certain humanitarian aids that I'm, of course, against. I'm against fuel. I'm against any humanitarian aid that can be used to attack our troops. But let's talk about flour, rice, water. Okay, that's something else. No, we cannot have it being delivered to the population by Hamas. If it will be delivered to the population, and that's the case today, we have to stop it, because that's the ways they get more support. That's the ways they get more soldiers for their fight against Israel. That's the way they get more money to buy more ammunition or to pay for expenses. That's the way. We're basically, if we're not making sure that the humanitarian aid, and put aside the question if and when and how much, but it never should come to the hands of Hamas. And currently, it's still a problem in Gaza. Okay. And those three issues are the key to the day before.
But we must relate to the day after. And we understand that it may be a challenge in terms of public opinion. But what is your opinion about what that needs to be there?
So first, I don't think it's a challenge in the public opinion. I think the vast majority of the public in Israel, and definitely the vast majority of the right in Israel, think that Jews should live in Gaza. So I don't think it's a problem with the public opinion. It is a problem to deal with it now for two reasons. One, I don't think it's practical to say, when we cannot bring still the people of Sderot back and the people of Saad back, to talk about bringing the people of Gush Katif back. So technically, that's not the stage. That's a technical answer. And there is also the time, there is a time for everything. I don't think it will be a debate in the right, but I do think it might be a debate in the Israeli larger public, and that's the reason. And like many other important issues, not because it's not important, not because I disagree with it, like many other issues, some of them very close to me. I don't think anyone can doubt that the judicial reform or any changes in the judiciary, the judicial system in Israel, it's something that I don't see as an important issue, right? I don't think there is a debate on that. Still, I say that's not the time to talk about it.
In light of the spirit of unity, you don't want to define that as
there are many important issues,
but the question
that
is,
I don't talk about it today, not because I changed my views, but that's not the time for having an internal debate.
I've noticed this by the chairman of your party, Finance Minister Smotrich, that at the beginning he said it's not a time to talk about it, but there is a feeling that because the debate is coming also from the left regarding the day after, he also is starting to talk about civil control over Gaza, and we know what civil means and what that could mean. Maybe it is time to start talking about sovereignty in Gush Katif, in Gaza Strip.
I think on all issues, sovereignty included, it's less. I was never looking for what is the best time to talk about issues. Mm-hmm. I think there is a time to do things and to talk about issues and not do, we had enough of it. It's time, when the time to do, and that's why it's very much connected to what I said before. It's interesting to talk about sovereignty or civil management of Gaza after the day after. Mm-hmm. Interesting. I prefer that what we can do today will be done today and not talk about what we might do tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We have enough on our plate. The problem in Judea and Samaria, where there is theoretically full military control. See what's happening in Jenin.
If we're talking about the military control, someone who did decide to do something these days is what we saw, demolition of hilltop communities in Gush Etzion during these days of war, far from any talk of unity.
So if you have noticed, first,
your party came out against this, so we know.
No, that's for sure. But that's the view from my window. It was near my house in Pnei Kedem. So and the people that their house were demolished are my neighbors, and I go there on Shabbat. So I did not need to read the news to know what's going on. I just needed to open the window. But that's exactly the reason that we need to look on those issues in the wider sense, meaning I live in Pnei Kedem. When this government started a year ago, I was an illegal settler. Today, Pnei Kedem is legalized. Among many new places in Yehuda v'Shomron, many new what you call young settlements or young communities that are now legalized in this government. So things are going forward. Things went forward in this aspect before October 7th. We didn't wait until now. That's one thing. So we need to know that things are happening. It's not only bad things. On those fronts, things are happening in this government. That's one thing. A second thing is that I addressed this issue. I retweeted a tweet by Yoav Gallant from a year and a half ago that he criticized former government because of demolition in Yehuda v'Shomron. So I retweeted it with not with a lot of words. I just retweeted it with a question mark.
Yes. Now,
An hour later, the Prime Minister said, no more demolitions of houses of reservists. When you know in Judea and Samaria, it means everyone. Right? So basically, it took an hour.
One last question.
It took an hour. I retweeted it with an exclamation mark. So I think that the fact that situation today is way better, even in large scale, even on small scale, than it used to be. Not perfect, but way better.
Just one last question. We saw your party come out in favor of encouraging Gazans to leave Gaza, and we saw here the poll presented by the Sovereignty Movement that there's a big majority in favor of that. Tell us how that will happen.
So first, this plan was introduced by really a broad consensus, even in politics. It's something that not only the public supports, also the elected officials. But I think that it's wrong to encourage Gazans to leave. You don't need to encourage Gazans to leave. They want to leave. They only need to not cooperate with Hamas. Because, there was a lie before October 7th that some people, when they saw the pictures from Gaza, they said, we were told a lie, that Gaza is the biggest open-air prison in the world. That was, around the world, that was they tried to say. So now they're showing the pictures of Gaza before and Gaza after and said, how could they lie to us so many years, saying it's an open-air prison? Look what wonderful houses they had, and now the Jews destroyed it. Okay, so it was we destroyed the open-air prison, and now it looks like an open-air prison. We are to be blamed anyway. But so that's the one major problem. But there is now an open-air prison in Gaza. It wasn't the case before October 7th, but that's the case now. People there wants to leave. No one wants to live in a refugee camp. No one wants to be dependent on humanitarian aid delivered by Hamas. No one wants it. And there is an open-air prison, but the prison guards are not Israel. The prison guards are Hamas. And any country who says, I will not let you come or let you leave, basically is aiding Hamas to use the population of Gaza as human shields. So I don't think we need to encourage it. We just need not to prevent it, not to cooperate with Hamas, who is holding this population as human shield. That's the humanitarian right thing to do. That's the moral right thing to do. And I think anyone who attacks the state of Israel, if we talk about it, really don't care about those people in Gaza. He cares about the problem they will do in the future to the state of Israel.
Okay, Knesset member Simcha Rothman, chairman of the Constitution, Law and Justice Committee in the Knesset. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.